Hello and welcome to Happy Horror Time. I'm Matt Emmert.
And I'm Tim Murdoch, and today we have a treat for you. He's one of the masters of horror and the director of the original Wrong Turn, the best in the series, and one of our favorite films here at Happy Horror Time. Please welcome to the podcast, Rob Schmidt.
Hey, you guys! Thanks for being here. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being on the
Yes, thank
podcast.
you.
We're so appreciative. We're so excited to be able to talk with you.
So, growing up in Slippery Rock, Pennsylvania, were you a fan of horror? And what was the very first horror movie you remember seeing?
Boy, okay, so I grew up outside of Slippery Rock, Pennsylvania, about 3 miles out in the country, and it was a big place with 52 acres and outbuildings and chickens and things like that. And
Oh, wow.
I think the first horror movie was my life, honestly.
I was just going to say, it sounds like a setup. What are you setting us up for?
Yeah, no, it was when I was 5, I had to I don't know if I had to. I guess I thought I had to. I had to collect eggs from the hen house, and it was like, I don't know if you've ever been in a small hen house, but it's not well maintained, and there are cobwebs, and there are these birds everywhere flying around. It's like pretty freaking scary, and to be 5 and go through there and be trying to get eggs, like stealing their children, it was a weird world to be in. But the first actual the first actual horror film I saw was The Son of Blob.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, it was terrifying. It was terrifying. There was this amazing candy. There was cotton candy that came in packages. Like it was pre-made in packages, but whatever. I was 7, I think, and it was good, and and I would sometimes leave the theater because it was too terrifying to watch the movie, and then I would go back in because I couldn't bear not to see what was happening.
Right. It's like a car accident you want to see.
Yeah. It's worse than a car accident because, when there's a car accident, I don't think it's going to happen to me next.
But the Son of the Blob, you were thinking?
Yeah.
I guess as a 7-year-old. Wait, just out of curiosity, where is Slippery Rock in relation to like Philadelphia or Pittsburgh? Those are the only 2 cities I know in Pennsylvania.
Okay, so Philadelphia is on the east, and it's it's sort of the megapolis, I guess I'd say, like New York, Philadelphia, Washington, all that. It's like one big city, and then Pittsburgh's on the west, and Slippery Rock is about an hour outside of Pittsburgh, near Ohio and West Virginia.
Okay. Oh, speaking of, because I was thinking to get into
I'm
like
from
Appalachian
Ohio.
area. Yeah, I'm from Southern California. But my family is all from the East Coast. My mom grew up in Philadelphia, but
Okay.
I've never been. I know it can be very rural in between the 2, metropolises of Pittsburgh and Philadelphia. So I'm just trying to imagine this hen house.
Yeah. I mean, it was a weird place. Like my best friend, the kid I hung out with a lot, didn't have a tongue, and he literally didn't have a tongue. And for the year or 2 when I was in kindergarten and first grade, I didn't know what he was saying. He would talk to me, and I just kind of like nod.
Oh,
Oh my God, I don't want to laugh because that sounds so serious. But all I'm thinking is, did you cast him in Wrong Turn? No.
you're terrible.
What happened, if I may dare ask?
You mean with that kid, or?
No. I mean, was he just born? He was born without a tongue, or there was an accident?
I don't know. When you're like 6, you like sometimes you'll just be really direct with people and be like, "Why are you missing a tongue?" And he couldn't tell me anyway. If he, but
Wow. Okay,
was
well, that paints a whole different picture to your background.
yeah, no, it's a very I mean, that world is strange because there's blue collar or unemployed rural people, and then there's Amish people, and
Yeah.
there's educated folks, I guess you'd call them educated, and they don't. And then there are hobos too, which is another really weird thing, like
Wow.
that just kind of drift. There are drifters, that'll come and ask if there's work.
It sounds similar to Ohio.
Yeah, no, it's the same deal. I think Ohio is flatter.
Wow. So, usually this would be kind of almost an ending kind of question, but since we were talking about horror movies that you've seen through your life, since obviously, I know you've worked on things that aren't just horror, but since we're a horror podcast, now as an adult, what are some horror movies or horror directors, I guess, that have either inspired you or had an impact on your life, if there's any you think of?
Well, obviously Stephen King for lots of people. I mean, he just is. He just is. But Night of the Living Dead was really important to me, and the original Alien was really important to me. Cannibal Holocaust.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so good, right?
Yeah.
Dawn of the Dead. Texas Chainsaw Massacre. There's a lot of stuff that like meant a lot,
Mm-hmm.
Texas Chainsaw Massacre is tricky for me because it's it's a nightmare world, and I would rather get to escape from the horror than be leave the theater still trapped in it.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes any sense.
Yeah.
And then Texas Chainsaw, I feel like I'm still trapped in that hell, so.
Yeah, I think some of the most effective horror movies are the ones that do stick with you. The ones that get you to check your back seat because you think someone's there. Yeah. The ones that get you to sleep with the lights on because you think you're going to be taken over by some. And Texas Chainsaw Massacre definitely is one of those movies.
My gosh,
a really tough to watch, but an incredible movie. Yeah.
So, how did you get involved in film? And you started out as a director of photography. Is that correct?
Yeah. Well, I started out as a PA, really, literally. Or my very first job was on a Hall & Oates music video with Daryl Hannah, who I never saw or met. And I was a scenic painter, and all I did was paint walls on sets when they weren't filming. But that was my first job in film, in show business.
And that went to then did you have an interest? Like, did you always know you wanted to be a director, or did you want to stay on the production side? Or
yeah, I always wanted to be a camera person or a director, and I used to, when I moved up through set lighting and then camera department and then into directing. And when I was a kid, some of the people I worked for I'd stand in. Until I figured out not to, I would stand in the way because I'd be thinking about where the camera should go, and I would stand there and like get in the way of people that were working,
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's what you knew that you wanted that type of role on film, though.
Yeah.
And then you went to the American Film Institute with directors Darren Aronofsky. I don't know if I can't pronounce that right.
Aronofsky.
Thank you. Mark Waters and writer Scott Silver. What was that like? And were any of them horror focused?
Were they horror focused? Well, Darren made Black Swan, which I think he considers a horror film.
I do.
Yeah, I would consider that a horror film.
Yeah. So let me think. Darren is interested in horror. Not really anyone else in my class, and honestly, I love horror. It's fair to say I love horror, and I've been engaged in it in different ways for my whole life. Like my relationship to horror is kind of complicated. I actually, I'm sober. I've been sober like 21 years, and there's a thing that people do in the steps. There's a thing called a fourth step, and it's like this very detailed inventory, and that you do of your life, and you do them every once in a while. And there's this crazy question I found in this old-fashioned inventory list. It was about it was like a question: as a child, were you afraid of the devil or monsters? Did you fear the darkness? And yeah, and it's about guilt and sexuality is what they're trying to get at. But it literally asked that, and so I had to think about it, and I was like, I was terrified of the dark, like as long as I can remember, and I would, when I was really little, I lived in a room with my brother, and my dad would stay with us, when you're whatever 3 or 4, till we went to sleep. but we would ask him about the war. He had been a combat veteran. We would ask him questions about killing people and things like that. And I don't know why. What's that?
At that young age?
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah. And I was terrified of dying. And I remember, I can't remember why, but I knew about vampires. And I used to be afraid that I would be bitten by a vampire. Like, seriously, like I'm not joking. And I would, like, the way that I would go to sleep once I was old enough that our dad didn't sleep in the room till we fell asleep and then leave. I would, like, take my blanket and hold it up like this and just lay in bed till I passed out, like, every night.
Oh my
For
God.
years,
That's
for
some heavy
years and
stuff
years.
for a young kid.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean,
Wow.
I was scared when I saw Psycho. I was scared.
It's so funny, but so I guess what you're saying, because your relationship with horror has been a little weird because you had so many horrors in your head. It's so
yeah. So I thought horror was evil for a little while. Like when I was in high school, I was like all political, and I thought it was evil to make horror films because I thought it damaged people.
Oh wow. I always looked at them as roller coaster rides. I always thought they were like super fun.
And I fully embrace the idea of being damaged.
Oh,
okay. So no, that's well, interesting. And then obviously you changed your mind, I guess.
No, but I will tell you, I think I can say, I'm just going to say this. Darren's producer, Eric Watson, who also went to AFI, for a while, I was just absolutely obsessed with Cannibal Holocaust. I just thought it was like the pinnacle of filmmaking. Seriously, I'm not joking. I thought it was like the pinnacle of filmmaking. And I would have people over at my house to watch it, multiple times. And once there were a bunch of people at my house and I was playing Cannibal Holocaust, and Eric was there. And he wasn't saying much, and he was just watching the movie. And then afterwards, people were drinking or whatever people were doing, and it was just like a small party. And Eric just disappeared. I was like, "Where'd Eric go?" Whatever. And then I get a call, and it's Eric, and he's like, "Rob, what did you do to me?" And I was like, "What do you mean, Eric?" And he was like, "I'm very upset." And I was like, "What do you mean you're upset?" And he was like, I'm on the 10. I pulled over on the side of the 10. And I was like, "Why did you pull over on the side of the 10? He's like, "I don't know if I can drive. I think that movie damaged me." And he literally and he said that he felt like he was one person before he watched it and another person afterwards.
Wow. I saw it at the New Beverly, and I went into it completely blind. My friends were like, "You have to see this movie." I was grossed out. I don't think it changed me. I just,
But did you pull over on a freeway on your ride?
No, I didn't take it home with me. I just left it at the theater.
Which is awesome. Which is that's the roller coaster ride, right? If you can do that.
Yeah. Wow. That's again, I know people, not everyone is like Tim and I that just love horror and just, want to see it all the time. There's a lot of people that just, it causes either, as a kid, I never had nightmares about the horror movies that I watched. I was lucky enough, for some reason, I guess my mind was able to say, this is a movie, and I don't know, you're not dreaming about that. But not everyone has that luxury, and so I can imagine that some people are a lot more affected than others.
Yeah, and honestly, I think at this point, what I really do believe is that horror films they're like a roller coaster ride, and they're a safe place for people to test their tolerance of fear. Like you can shut it off. You can go out in the lobby and buy cotton candy if they still sell that stuff. And then you can go back and watch more of it, and it's totally safe. And that's kind of a great thing, and it's especially a great thing, for younger people who are not sure, how much fear they can handle and whatnot.
Yeah, no, definitely. So, jumping forward to Wrong Turn, which obviously we wanted to talk to you a lot about, and we both really mean it. We love the movie. We truly do. So, thank you for making it.
Yeah, it's so good.
So tell us how you got involved with the project, and what was your first impression of the script, how you got involved?
And when was the last time you saw the film?
When was the last time what?
When was the last time you saw the film?
Oh boy. The last time I saw it, I want to say was 2 years ago with some students.
Okay.
So it's different, you know, it's different to watch movies you made, but it's also different to watch movies like that have, it means different things to different people. Like I once I got introduced to somebody who, they had a campground that they stayed at every summer in Switzerland on some lake, and in the common house they only had like 5 DVDs, and one of them was Wrong Turn, so they like watched it over and over again every summer. And that's what it was for them. It was like the summer at the camp, like horror film that they would watch, you know.
I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's like a different, like that person, their relationship to it's different than, you know, my relationship to it. In like a gigantic way, it's different, you know.
Yeah.
But I'm sorry, you were asking
I was just,
before.
how'd you first get involved with the project?
Oh yeah, so let me think. I had come off of Crime and Punishment in Suburbia, and I was doing a lot of meetings, and I was at a meeting, I want to say at Miramax in New York, and it was for some other horror film, and the people there were like, "Wow, you like horror, huh?" And I was like, "Yeah, I love horror. I really want to make a horror film." And they were like, "We don't have anything big right now, but we have the sequel to Hellraiser." It was one of the Hellraisers, and I was like, and they were like, "You wouldn't want to do that, would you?" And I was like, "Would I?" You know, I was like very excited, and and my agent Lee Keel, I got out and I was like super excited, and I called her in LA, and she was like, "Rob, if you do that, I won't represent you anymore." You know, she, yeah, she didn't want me to do a sequel. You know, I guess is what it was, because she's not like well, actually she's represented a lot of horror people, but she just didn't want me to do a sequel. And but then after that, like they started sending me more horror scripts, and when I got Wrong Turn, the thing that I felt about it was that it was not original. It was not original, but it was like very simple and clean. And I started thinking about it. This is going to sound really pretentious, but I started thinking about it like a piece of sashimi, you know. That you know, the thing is that it has all the elements that if you make them work, it'll be delicious. No, it'll be you can make it this thing that's like perfect as what it is, you know. And that was how I got involved in it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of some of those elements that made it work, we're huge fans of Eliza Dushku. You know, she was huge at that point, like with Buffy the Vampire Slayer and coming off of Bring It On. Did you set out to cast her in that lead role, or was she brought to you? Because she was a big, you know, I guess just a big person to get for that movie.
Yeah. She was, I think we saw every gal that was that age that was in LA at the time. Like, literally, I'm not even joking. And at first it was like, there was the first day that there were auditions, it was in the offices at Summit Entertainment. And they had this, you know, those glass conference rooms.
Yeah.
Well, so we were auditioning people in that conference room, and the actors that were waiting to audition were sitting outside of the conference room looking through the glass at the people that were trying to read.
Oh, that's intimidating. Jeez.
It was like brutal. And I was just so focused that I didn't realize that was happening until about halfway through the day. And I was like, oh my God, this is like hell. Like it's its own horror film, you know, to have to watch like but and we didn't get to, and Eliza is a dear friend of mine, and I did Alphabet Killer with her, and I mean, I just love Eliza, and I text with her fairly regularly, you know. But at that point, we had hired Desmond Harrington first, and people thought that Desi was going to break. Like, he was this really good-looking kid, you know. I didn't hear you. What?
I agree with that.
Yeah, he's gorgeous, and he was, I think he was in a Levi's campaign at that point. Like look, sexy guy with dark hair and blue eyes and Levi's, that kind of thing.
Oh,
And he got cast first. And Desi's a sweetheart, by the way. He got cast first, and he was the scripted lead. Like, he was number one on the call sheet. And it's one of those things where you look at the structure of the movie, and it is like, if you were doing, if you were in a screenwriting class and you're doing an analysis, it's Desi's movie,
yeah,
But it's really Eliza's movie. I mean, it's Eliza's movie. She's the star, I think. She's the star role.
It's weird because it's Desmond's, he starts the movie and like goes off, and then he meets Eliza with her crew, but you can tell she's just going to be a heroine right from the beginning, I mean, but you're right, it's kind of both of their movies. But sorry, go on with Eliza.
No, it's just it's funny that you say that, because there's a thing that you do sometimes, I do anyway, where you do a test screening, you do an audio recording of it that you sync up to the movie so you can see where people make noise,
Mm-hmm.
And when the movie's playing and the first stretch of it is a little slow, and then there's the car wreck, and then Eliza appears, and when Eliza appears, the audience cheers. Like they're like they're like, that's who they came to the movie for,
Yeah, so she auditioned, then did she just shine above the other?
No, I should correct that. She did not audition. She was meeting it's weird the way, I mean, but movies are, it's so fucked the way you get movies set up, and like, you'll make offers to people that will never do your movie, and it'll take months, and then they'll be like, well, we're going to audition people, and they bring all these people into audition that they'll never finance the movie with. And there's just a lot of that goes on back and forth. And Eliza was not one of the people that came into audition for, I don't know why, but she didn't. And then Summit was like, Desi's going to be a star, you have to hire Desi. And I knew Desi through Scott Kahn, James Caan's son.
Mm-hmm.
And I just started begging Desi to do the movie. And we shot up in Toronto in Canada, and I was already up there, like, prepping, doing builds and things like that, but we didn't have our leads. And it was like Canadian Independence Day, I think. And I drove something like 100 miles in my car while I talked to Desi on the phone, and he kept telling me why he wasn't going to do the movie. And literally for like something like 2 hours. And then at one point, like, I was just like, okay, it's not going to happen. I didn't say that to him, but that's what I was thinking. He was like, what the hell, I'll do it. It's just a movie. And I was like, great. And then once he was on, he was super aggressive about trying to get good folks around him, And when I had Eliza, rather than auditioning, there's a thing they do, which is an offer based on a meeting, I guess, where you go to like a restaurant and hang out with the person. Mm-hmm. And I knew Eliza's work. I didn't know her well. And we were eating lunch, and she was kind of pretty, but not super pretty. And then, as I don't know, that just some people can do this, where you fall in love with them. If you hang out with them too long, you like fall in love with them, And I was like looking at her, and she was getting more and more beautiful each moment, Like, it was disturbing, like it was some kind of spell happening, And then about 15 minutes in, I was like, she is the most charming, fascinating woman on earth, And then Desi showed up just out of the blue, and he was like, oh, hey, imagine you guys here. Somehow he found out that we were having lunch there, and he sat down with us and begged Eliza to do the movie. And
really? Love it.
Yeah.
Was she hesitant at all, or was she like, I'm in, I want to fight these inbred people?
Yeah. Oh, I should say there was another thing, is that, in the cabin, that sequence originally had necrophilia in it. And yeah, and it was, they had wanted to have like famous actors play the inbreds, and none of the famous actors wanted to play the inbreds. And
What?
Who were the famous actors you were trying to get?
you name it. I mean, Anthony Hopkins was not one of them, but it was like that kind of thing, you know.
Tom Cruise, Julia Roberts.
It was like the older guys who, you know, it was either older guys who were like you know, leading men like 30 years before, or it was guys who were like, you know, too big a supporting talent to do that part. But in any case, what they decided was, well, none of them want to do it because they don't want to have a reputation for having sex with corpses, you know. And
Hollywood, I tell you.
yeah. So we had to cut that part out. But no, there was never, in the conversation with Eliza, it was never about killing inbreds. It was I think it was about being an action hero, you know.
Full of action. It's yeah.
No, I mean, they have a great relationship throughout. But one thing you touched on with Eliza that I wanted to ask you about, because she was also the star of another one of your movies, you said, The Alphabet Killer. So that obviously can't be a coincidence, right? Did you, from working with her, then ask her to do that movie, or did it just?
No, I like always, from the minute I did the rewrite on Alphabet Killer, I wanted it to be Eliza's movie, you know.
So Stan Winston, who did special effects on Jurassic Park and Terminator 2, was involved with the design of the Mountain Men. What was it like to work with him? And also, did he ever talk about his time on Friday 13 Part 3?
No, I don't think he did talk about that. I'm sorry.
Because he apparently is an uncredited person on Friday the 13th, Part 3, with designing like the whole hockey mask thing. Yeah. So that's pretty.
Can Stan Winston take credit for that?
Yeah, I wonder, but
you know, he God rest his soul. No, Stan was like he's a super charming, super funny, like great. He's a great man, was a great man, and he at their studios on Van Nuys, they have like a whole, I want to say, trophy room, and like a third of the characters that I remember from movies are in that room, like Beetlejuice and just a gazillion different, The Ghost from What Lies Beneath, just you know, all the Jurassic Park stuff, and just like hundreds of characters. So maybe he did make the mask. I don't know.
But he was involved in the design of the Mountain Men, correct? So he was working on that.
Oh yeah. So there were three companies there were four actually, but one of them fell out. There were three companies that were actively involved in producing, and Stan's company was one of those. And Stan was like a very active producer, along with Brian. Why am I forgetting Brian's last name? Brian. Say it again.
She said Brian De Palma, but I have a feeling that's not the correct Brian.
Brian, darn it. He's going to hate me. Hopefully he won't hear this broadcast.
While you are doing that, we will look it up on IMDb.
Brian Gilbert, Melissa Gilbert's brother. No, I'm joking, not Melissa Gilbert's brother, but Brian Gilbert was Stan's head of production, and he and Stan were there almost every day, and like all through pre-production and whatnot. And and Shane Mahan, who runs Legacy Effects now, which is named for Stan Winston's company. Shane was the main force in designing, and Shane actually had been with Stan like a million years. I think Shane in the original Terminator, when Arnold Schwarzenegger isn't the Terminator, Shane is. Like, yeah. And Shane's like a puppeteer and an effects designer and a sculptor and just an amazing. He's like the man behind the curtain, you know, and Stan's the Wizard of Oz.
The wizard from Oz.
So I saw Wrong Turn opening night at the ArcLight, RIP. And I loved it. My personal favorite scene is the chase scene in the trees. Can you share some secrets on how difficult it was to film this scene?
Well, Desmond Harrington, I found out on the day we were rehearsing it, which was about a week before we did it, is afraid of heights.
Good time.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and could not go. He would only go on the set of branches that were 3 feet from the ground and not any of the higher ones.
Oh my God, that's so funny because now thinking about that scene, they seem so high up, and
Yeah.
now thinking that he's only 3 feet above the ground. How
It
about
was
the girls? The girls did they go higher?
so yeah, and actually, you know what? Desmond is great, and he had that fear for real, which I think if you have that fear, it's crippling.
Yeah, of
He did, you know, when they jump out of the fire tower.
course.
So they were on decelerator rigs, which are these cables, aircraft cables, I think, that are on a a thing that looks like a funnel, only it's super strong and
Mhm.
it rotates. And at first it's dropping, like, you know, it's at the wide side. So every crank drops 3 feet of cable, and the person's falling in a free fall. And then as they crank and the wheel gets smaller, it's releasing less cable each side. So they go like, so they go like this. You know, they go super fast. And they were doing, I want to say it was a 40-foot drop on a decelerator cable. And Desmond did agree to be filmed dropping on the decelerator cable with the camera aimed at his face. And if you look, when he falls, he's in a lot of pain, you know.
And just for our listeners, he looked at Rob did a very
Like-
terrified look on the face. So wow, so that was some real fear then.
That was some real fear, yeah. And I'll tell you, there was another shot that we did was landing on the branch. And when Emmanuelle Shrieky, who's a sweetheart, was, I want to say, her first take, when she caught her arm, there was a loud crack, which was her shoulder popping out of the socket.
Oh my God.
Yes. I was like, I mean, not to sound selfish and self-interested, but like, I was like, I am fucked. Right? 'Cause
No, but it's funny that you mention that, because another thing that and Emmanuel played Carly in it, just in case, if everyone knows who's seen the film, she's kind of she basically is the one who dies last, as opposed to of the friends. Almost makes it, but doesn't quite, out of those
I think her
trees.
death is the most brutal.
Yeah, and it's sad because she made it so long and then didn't make it till the end. But speaking of the injuries, I had also read that Desmond broke his ankle on the scene running away from the cabin. So it looks like, so there were some definite injuries on the sets. Did most of the actors do their own stunts throughout?
No, they didn't. We just were young and over enthusiastic, I think. And I'll tell you, with Desmond, and this is a thing that, like, you know, like, the reason I wanted to make very clear that fear of heights is a real thing and not like someone being whiny, is that day that we were shooting the runaway from the cabin, Desmond would pretty much do anything I asked him to do to make the movie. Like, he's not a fool, and he wouldn't do something stupid, but he wanted to make a good movie, and he would work his ass off to do that. And it was the end of the day, and we were getting, that run through the woods, and I was like, Desmond, I need one more take of that, and he was like, only one more. Like, he actually was kind of irritated, and he was never irritated, and I was like, Des, are you okay? Are you all right? And he was like, I'm fine. I just want to do one more take and no more. And I was like, what's going on? And he was like, my ankle really hurts. And he'd been complaining about his ankle, and I'd been like, we just got to keep going. And he lifted his pant leg up, and his ankle was swollen, like it was, I want to say, I'm trying to think of how to describe this. It looked like an 8-inch pipe hanging over his shoe.
Oh
Like,
my God.
like I saw it and I was like, oh my God. Like,
Wait, but what I want to know is, did you do the extra take after that?
this sounds, like I said, we were young, we did the extra take. We did
Oh
it.
my God.
We did 10 more
So
takes.
he ran with that huge swollen ankle. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Wow.
He's wearing khakis and a nice blue shirt.
I know. Yeah, exactly. Wow. Just curious, out of all, because there's so many really great, memorable scenes in it, but of all the scenes, what's your favorite scene in the movie and why?
Boy, I was just telling someone the other day, like, I'm a total cheese ball, and I after I make something, I like it. Like, and I made a Lifetime movie, and I like the Lifetime movie. Like, I'm like kind of
James Manslow.
yeah.
In loves Lifetime.
Like I like everything that I make, which sounds horrible and pathetic, but I
No,
like
that actually sounds like an incredibly healthy way of looking at creative endeavors. So more power to you.
That's sweet of you to say. But you know, there's a few things that I like. I like the cabin a lot, and Alicia Kiwan, the production designer, just like, she's super creative, and she like busted her ass to make this amazing cabin that tells stories, you know.
Oh, I mean, but every room, everything they open, every detail in that cabin is so creepy. Like it's like Texas Chainsaw Massacre times 10.
Yeah, she put so much into it, and she was like so nice. Like, there was a flea market in Toronto, and on my day off, sometimes I'd go there and find, you know, just creepy farm implements, and she would put them in the cabin and things like that for me. So it was but so consequently, the cabin, like, I just adore when they're kind of drifting around, and I think about it like in The Wizard of Oz, you know, when they're in the opium field and they're kind of dreamy and like, what's happening? Like, I feel like that cabin has that kind of vibe to it, where it's almost hallucinatory, you know.
Yeah.
They're like, they should leave, but they're just like, oh, look, it's a whole bowl of teeth.
But did Carly really go? Did she find and go to the bathroom?
I don't think she ever went to the bathroom, which means she must
I think Carly finds the smell and is just like, I will never go to the you know what happens is there's a hand in the bathtub. The bathtub's full of filth, and there's a hand in it.
It is funny because she has to go pee so badly and then never gets to go pee. It's the worst. Actually, I think the worst feeling would be getting what did she get, an axe to her head and on the tree?
It was chopped. I was like,
chopped. Yeah, I'd say that takes the cake.
Well, that's it.
But anyway, sorry, go on. So you were saying you love the cabin scene, which is great.
Oh, okay. The cabin scene, I love dead people. What dead people? You know, when he gets I love that scene. The treetops, I love the treetops. Boy, you know, the final battle, I think, is really great. I'll tell you, with the final battle though, that was the point in the project where there's a thing that happens a lot of times, where when two people are a couple on a movie, their relationship gets really close and intimate. And as a director, you're terrified of that, because eventually they'll have like a lover's spat, you know, and then not want to be on set together or whatever. And that was happening while we were filming that climax. And there was an argument between Eliza and Desi about who gets to kill Three Finger.
Oh, really?
Yes, which was brutal. It was brutal. And they started going to the producers about it, and both of them, and it was about who was the lead of the movie, really. It was like a proxy battle. It was like a proxy battle for whose movie is this. And you know, I eventually, this is going to sound ridiculous, I prayed. It's funny that I pray over horror films, but I prayed. I said to the producers and everybody, in my heart, Eliza should kill Three Finger, you know.
Yeah.
And so that, you know, that's what happened. Desi's holding him, and she puts the axe through him. But that was
Desmond okay with that? Like, did he learn to live with it?
He had
or
to.
does he still hold a grudge? Like, if we took him and say, oh my God, Rob Schmidt didn't let me kill Three Finger.
he's still, you know, we're still warm with each other. So I guess he didn't hold a grudge, as far as I know, unless at some point I'll like visit him and get like a knife in my back without I don't look over my shoulder.
That's funny.
Have you seen the sequels or the new the one with the exact same name?
The reboot, yeah. Have you seen any of the sequels? Because what I wanted to ask is, because especially after the first Wrong Turn, was there any talk of you doing the sequel, or would your agent not let you do that?
Yeah, no, I would have done it, and it was a time in the industry when, like, big films, the like big tentpole films, were making more money from the DVD sales than the theatrical.
Yeah.
And like literally they would make like, you know, whatever, 100 million and 100 million, that kind of thing. And which sounds ridiculous now, but it was what was happening.
Mhm.
And Fox made a decision that Wrong Turn 2 would go straight to video because they figured they would make more money that way than doing a theatrical.
Mhm.
And my contract for the sequel was a theatrical contract. And so, you know, Stan wasn't on it, I wasn't on it. It was a disappointment that it went that way, but it was
So that's so disappointing.
I
So
know,
if
I
it
would have seen
was,
it.
meaning if it was theatrical, you would have done the sequel.
yeah.
Damn.
Oh, these
Yeah,
contracts.
no, that's so. Have you seen the sequel, like Tim was saying, or
Oh,
any
yeah.
of the sequels?
You know, they're a different they're a different thing than the first film.
Yeah.
And they have their pleasures. So I'm
Gore.
not. Say again.
Gore, lots of gore.
Yeah. And it's campy gore, you know. And so and honestly, I haven't seen the reboot. I will see it. I have a copy of it. I just haven't looked at it yet.
It's interesting because the reboot was written by the same screenwriter as your Wrong Turn.
Alan,
I
yeah.
was just wondering, was there ever talk of you guys teaming up again on a reboot, or was that something completely separate?
It was, you know, I'm surprised they got Alan to do this new one, but they did get him. There was never, I can't remember what Alan's contract was, but the like Stan's contract and my contract were for theatrical release, theatrical release sequel, you know, or sequels. And I imagine that Alan's was as well. So, you know, I don't know, but you know, yeah, they I think they serve a different purpose. The other versions. Have you guys seen the new one? Is it?
I've seen them all.
I will say this, not a fan of the sequels, but did enjoy the reboot. It was the only one that I think can hold a candle to yours, to be completely honest. It's a very different movie, though. It's not the same. Like, the villains are different. I mean, obviously they take a wrong turn. It's a bunch of friends, but the villains are different. It's more like a weird society, cultish. It's not like inbred cannibals. It's different in that respect, but it's definitely worth a watch, I would say.
It's I mean, not that I could relate to any of the Wrong Turns, but it's not something I could see realistically happening, whereas your version could happen.
Yeah. The thing I was about the, you know, the reboot, Bill Sage is in it, and we went to college together, and then and I guess Matthew Modine's in it too. Is that right?
Yes.
Are they good? They must be good. Those guys are both really good guys.
You know, it's a great, what's good, you know how in yours, it's, you know, the relationship between Desmond and Eliza. In this one, it's a father-daughter, and Matthew Modine plays the father, and who goes looking for her
the
after.
Only parent.
Literally the only parent that goes looking for a kid that's missing. And you're wondering,
That's awesome.
Yeah.
You should have the other parents just being like, nah.
They're like, we're so
no,
busy.
so it is good, but again, it could easily have had a different title, and I would have thought it's a totally different movie. So in a way, I feel like it was capitalizing on the Wrong Turn franchise, but, you know, rightfully so, because it's been so successful.
Yeah.
You know, one thing about the ending to your movie, the theatrical ending, we had heard something that
what there was like a non-union crew or something, and like they wanted to tack on an ending, and I was just curious if you can shed light on what happened.
Or was it the ending you intended, or did you have a different ending in mind versus what the studio went with?
Yeah, it's funny. I don't think I've ever talked with anyone about this, but now with the
strike, we love these exclusives. Please go on.
Oh, there's a dog here. Hey, how you doing, Sia? You're running upstairs. She's very scared of the dark. Okay, so the companies got excited about there being sequels, and they felt like they needed to have an ending that would allow there to be sequels. Although what the ending of the movie was supposed to be was Desi and Eliza in the truck, like looking at each other, like kind of like the end of The Graduate, you know, when they make the couple look at each other. It was supposed to be that, only it means something different than The Graduate. Like they're a couple now. They've gone through this thing together and they're grateful to be together. That was supposed to be the ending, and then they decided that in order to make it easier to make sequels, they should shoot a trooper at the cabin, and then they were like, we're going to do it with a non-union crew, and I was not willing to do that because it would just not like, that's not what it was. They were cheating. I don't know how else to say it. Like, it was like something that was in, like, you sign contracts with the actors and the director and whatnot with the guilds, and it's to protect everybody. And then they were like, hey, we can do this really cheap and make it way better by having this at the end. And I read through the scripts of it. I talked to the art department and whatnot. I helped get props for it. But I said I wouldn't be on set for it. So that's the story of that.
Wow.
Protect the unions.
Yeah. So meaning they just went ahead, you just said, I'm not going to be there for it.
Yeah.
Wow.
And actually, Mark Waters said, you should go, but just go and be an observer. Mark's an old friend of mine, the guy who directed Mean Girls. And
Mark Waters? Tim, do you know Mark Waters?
14 years.
But but I didn't, and it worked out fine. It's fine. It's actually really fun. I think that it appears after the credits. So
yeah, I mean, the credits rolled and then the scene comes on, so it's cool.
Yeah.
No, I think it's cool too.
So here's our last question. When the film was released, was there any sort of red carpet premiere for it, and were there any random celebrities there that attended that you can remember? Because sometimes
do you know the answer to this already?
No.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So there was a red carpet premiere, and it was awesome because they tried to do it like an old castle picture, and they had an ambulance out front, and they took people's blood pressure and checked their hearts before they went in.
That's cool.
Really?
Yeah, and they gave people, there were, I think I have one someplace, there were commemorative vomit bags for people so they could throw up, and they could throw up in the barf bag if they had to during the movie. And he was not yet, but Governor Schwarzenegger was there.
Oh, wow.
Really?
That's a good one.
Yeah, he was there for the...
Do you think, I'm just guessing, was it anything related to like the Stan Winston tie from Terminator 2?
Yes, that was why he was there. Yeah. He was in a very nice suit, but he still looked gigantic.
Did you get his reaction to the movie? Was he one of the people?
Did he barf?
Did Governor barf?
He just laughed and clapped. I think actually at one point they announced Stan Winston, and he said, and Stan and him lift weights, like both of them would lift weights. But Stan's like a small guy, but he said, Stan, take off your shirt. Like Stan was also like 70 years old or 65 or something. And it was, no, he didn't take his shirt off, but it was just a weird thing to be like, oh my God, I'm in a movie theater with Arnold Schwarzenegger, and he just told my friend to take his shirt off.
Now, did Desmond take off his shirt?
No, Desmond was all business, unfortunately.
Oh, yeah. Tim was telling me something that I didn't know, that you're now a professor at Emory College.
University, yeah.
Oh, yes. And we were just, does Wrong Turn ever get mentioned in the class? Like, do you ever mention it? Are there any horror nerds like us in there?
Yeah, like if we were in your class, we would ask about it.
Exactly.
Yeah, it happens. It's I think actually some people resent that I get recognized for Wrong Turn. It's not I don't know if they resent it or they're embarrassed by it, but because it's not entirely scholarly, I suppose. I
love it. I embrace it.
But it's nice, and it gives me credit. It gives me cred with students,
Yeah, no, that's really cool. I mean, and another thing that we know that you did, I know we've focused on Wrong Turn, but you did an episode of Masters of Horror, which for people who don't know is a series with hour-long episodes that were directed by all sorts of like horror greats like John Carpenter, Toby Hooper,
Stuart Gordon.
Yeah. So, and we saw your episode and loved it. Really, it was a fun. But that must be great to work on a series like in the company of all these horror greats, right?
It was awesome, and they were super nice and supportive. Like, actually, there was a thing that I didn't, in hindsight, I kept begging for more visual effects, and they would just give them to me. Like, a lot of times you work for, a studio or something, and they were like, no, you can't have it, and they would, but they were trying to take care of the directors, and they just kept giving me stuff. The last thing that they gave me was the footprints made out of water that disappear when, during actually, that's one of my favorite moments that I've ever done, is when he's having sex with the beautiful woman and she turns into the hideous monster.
In the hot tub.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you, since it's cable and there's like nudity, is that a cable thing, or because if it was on NBC, they wouldn't really.
Oh, you mean like did they want you to do nudity?
Yeah. No, I'm really glad you brought that up, because a thing that makes me like, I love that. Like I said, I love all the stuff I do, but that I have to qualify that one because it was Showtime, and at that point, Showtime was like, you have to put big boobies in everything you do.
There were sure big boobies in that.
Yeah. I don't know if you listened to the director's commentary, but when we were editing, that woman's boobs are so big that it's shocking, and we had to hold the shot longer because you just kind of look at it and you're like, it takes because when you read a shot, it takes X amount of time to figure out what's happening in the shot, and that shot you're like, what it takes a little longer.
No male nudity, but I think at the time, I guess Showtime and Cinemax, they always wanted female nudity, and probably were like, no male nudity needed.
Well, they know their audience.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the reverse. There's no nudity, but when I did the Lifetime movie, it was hard to find a director of photography, because I was like, you have to celebrate the male body. Like, that has to be what happens in this. Like, this is for people to go home and relax and just look at beautiful men,
like beautiful men.
I was jealous of the mother and the daughter.
We do have our very last question. We ask it to every single person we interview, and you kind of already gave us a few tidbits that fall under this. So if you don't have any other ones, we'll consider it answered. But we always ask everyone, what is one thing you can tell us about your experience directing Wrong Turn that you haven't told any other interviewer, any podcast, any publication? Like, one thing that you've not told anyone about your experience on Wrong Turn.
You don't have to shock us.
But I mean,
I have to think about that for a second. What have I not told anyone? Oh, okay. You know what I haven't told anyone is that back then, I don't know. I haven't gotten per diem this way in a long time, but back then you got per diem like they just handed you a stack of money, like, and I didn't even know what this is how naive I was. I didn't know what my deal was for per diem, but at the end of the week, like each week, the executive producer would come up and it would be sort of like a drug deal, and he would give me an envelope and it would have like a lot of hundreds in it. And I just I worked all the time. Like I was just working, and I would be super tired, and I would go home to my I had like a hotel suite, and I would go home to the hotel suite, and I would open my safe, and I would take out stacks of hundreds and lay them out on the table and just look at all these stacks of
Oh my God. Did you ever throw them all up on the bed and just like do a
I'm rich do a like casino type no, but I did a creepier, it was more like Gollum, like like I'm embarrassed about it.
I love it. Wow. No.
Actually, there was this thing that a friend of mine told me that relates to that I thought was amazing, is she had worked with Owen Wilson, and he for decades has gotten these ridiculous per diem deals, and they were going into Sony, I want to say, and the security guard wanted him to provide ID, and he was like, I think I have an ID someplace, and he kept opening his pockets and putting $100 bills on just all of his pockets had cash in them, and he had no IDs. Like, I guess he just had, my Gollum thing times 1,000,000, and he just walked around with hundreds all over him and nothing else because he was Owen Wilson.
Wow. Baller.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you so much, seriously, for all of your time, your great answers, your great stories. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, that was fun.
Really fun. We hope you enjoyed it too. Thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it. We'll keep you posted on when the interview's coming out. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you, guys. It was super fun. Thanks for being so nice.
Thank you so much for letting me be late.
Yeah. Okay. Enjoy your evening. Take care.
Yep. You guys too. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye. We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Happy Horror Time. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, and through our website, happyhorrortime.com.
If you haven't already, please like and follow Happy Horror Time page on Facebook. You can also follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Happy Horror Time.
We love hearing from our listeners, so if you want to contact us, send us an email at happyhorrortime@gmail.com. You can tell us what you like about the podcast, give us movie recommendations, interview suggestions, or dating advice for Tim.
Oh, Matt. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit patreon.com/happyhorrortime to sign up. Patrons get access to our growing library of bonus episodes where we look back at old horror films, popular franchises, and other fun stuff.
I'm Matt Emmert.
And I'm Tim Murdoch.
And we hope you've had a happy horror time.